Chapter 69, Just Deserts. Ling Zhou huffed and panted. As he lowered his head by chance, he saw that his palms had a faint sheen of red that was actually blood. He could not help but receive a shock, inwardly scolding himself for dealing out such a heavy hand towards his son. Both Chutinger and Ling Ran had their eyes filled with unshed tears, and pounced forward at this time, cradling Ling Tian in their bosoms. This darling of theirs was screaming out, and seeing how Ling Tian's buttocks were intermingled with blood, both women could not help but start tearing. They simultaneously focused their glares at Ling Zhou. Ling Ran did not even bother with manners, and immediately started berating, "Brother, you are unreasonable. Tanner is just a little child, is there a need to hit him so hard? What can a child of his age know? The top beam is not straight, the lower beams will be crooked. Even if he did anything wrong, why should you vent your frustrations on him?" When she thought of how she finally got a chance to visit her parents, she hurriedly ran over to play with her long-missed nephew. Who would have known that this would result in Ling Tian getting a severe beating? Hearing such words, Chutinger seemed to have turned red with embarrassment. She immediately carried her child and ran inside the room, ordering the servants to bring ointment as well as clean bandages over. Ling Zhou turned around in embarrassment. Although his heart was full of regrets, he still did not wish to put himself down to admit his wrongdoings. Furthermore, what Ling Zhou was angry about in actuality was not about the fiasco created by Ling Tian. For such a small kid, even if he clowned around, what about it? What could actually happen? What really blew Ling Zhou's top was that with so many people seeing his son acting so wretchedly, it was impossible for him to hide it. Ling Zhou could imagine that this matter would travel through the entire capital and provinces in the next few days, and he would most likely end up as a laughingstock in the entire imperial court. The Ling's young noble who was a silk pants was most assuredly going to resound throughout. Ling Kong and son, rejoicing in the misfortune, only offered a few conciliatory phrases to Ling Zhou before leaving in a joyful mood. Right now, it was no longer suitable for them to continue staying any longer. Ling Zhou turned around, carrying a black face, and came face to face with a bunch of giggling blood iron warriors. Because of frequently mixing around with them, they had long become brothers in arms. Seeing their bedraggled looks, he could not help but lift up a brow and ask, "What are you all doing? Why do you all look so worn out?" The crowd in question turned silent. No one had forgotten those steely words that Ling Tian had spoken that day. "No one should even think about revealing my matters to others." After a while, Ling Zhou's face was growing all the more black, and his eyes looked akin to a storm brewing. To think even his subordinates were not bothering to answer his question? Seeing that the situation was not going well, Feng Mo scratched his head and said, "Ooh. This. Ling Zhou blew up once again. "What this and what that? Quickly spit it out." Feng Mo could only recite prayers in his heart as he spoke. The young noble made us go running. Inside himself, he thought, this should not be considered as revealing his secret, right? Running? Ling Zhou revealed some suspicion. Run for what? This. Feng Mo scratched his scalp in embarrassment. The young noble said that running was very fun. After mulling about it for half a day, Feng Mo, this sort of upright and honest man, finally came out with his first lie, making him red with embarrassment. Fun? Ling Zhou jumped out of his skin once again, furiously hopping on his feet and snarling, "This daddy here worked so hard to train up the blood iron warriors, to create warriors of the country that would win 100 battles and more, to create heroes on the battlefield. This bastard actually dared to ask you go to run for fun? What a DJ bag." Looking at the group of blood iron warriors, Ling Zhou spoke in shame, "Fellow brothers, I was the one who caused this to you. Because of me, you have to suffer the torture of this little bastard and his antics. Please rest assured, brothers, I will think of a method to return you guys back to the military." The crowd looked at each other in dismay, all wisely choosing to remain silent. While they were touched by Ling Zhou's sense of brotherhood, the crowd could not help but be worried. If Ling Zhou were to really get his way, they would all be recalled back to camp. In this half a month, the 36 of them could clearly feel that, be it in energy or physique, all of them were experiencing growth once again, and even to a point where it was unbelievable. This was just in half a month. The young noble even said that this feeling was only the beginning, and was just a test. The real method to strength increase was far from this. With such a golden opportunity and good master in front of them, who would choose to return to that dark and hopeless future of an army camp? Unless that person's head had been kicked by a mule. Immediately, everyone's heads turned towards Feng Mo. If his simple 2 sentences would make everyone else lose this chance, then they would definitely want to peel off his skin alive. Being the target of the piercing stares, Feng Mo's head started to sweat profusely, and he forced a smile to say, "General does not need to worry, we little ones are also quite happy to stay here right now." Ling Zhou let out a long sigh, the rims of his eyes wet with tears. He patted Feng Mo's shoulder, lowly saying, "Brothers, I know you all desire to keep me out of trouble. You all need not say more, all of you brothers can wait for my good news." As he finished, Ling Zhou turned and left, his expression solemn and his steps heavy. All those behind him were stunned silly. As they looked on the disappearing back of Ling Zhou, all of them walked towards Feng Mo with gritted teeth. Everyone started to clench their fists, the caca sounds sounding unceasingly. Seeing that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, Feng Mo hurriedly retreated while drying laughing. "Brothers, let's sit down and talk it out, ha ha ha, I was also forced to a corner." "Beat him up." No one knew who first shouted, but immediately, a deluge of black-clothed people covered Feng Mo in an instant. Feng Mo turned to run, but it was already too late. The sound of anguished wailing sounded, even worse than what Ling Tian had given out previously. Inside the room, Ling Tian, who was regulating his inner chi while listening to the conversation of the crowd, let out an expression of satisfaction. He now knew that this group of blood iron warriors was really beginning to lean towards his side. A tiny shadow dashed out from Ling Tian's residence. This was precisely Ling Jian. The moment Ling Jian returned to the residence and heard that Ling Tian had gotten punished, he had panicked and rushed in without even cleaning his face. Seeing Ling Jian coming out, all of the blood iron warriors gathered around him to listen to the latest news, leaving behind a Feng Mo on the brink of death. Hey, Ling Jian, how is the young noble right now?" "Yeah, Jian, what did the young noble say?" "Yeah, it has already been half a month, has the young noble said that we passed yet?" Ling Jian looked towards all of them with a trace of pity in his eyes which was gone in a flash. He wore a strange look on his face, half laughing and crying. For a long while, he looked at them without talking, which caused them to panic and have the sudden urge to rush forward to grab that slender neck to force every word out of him. Cough. Cough. Ling Jian cleared his throat as though he was about to talk. The audience suddenly held their breaths as they pricked up their ears. However, no one expected that after he finished coughing, he shook his shoulder and frowned, saying, "My shoulder is sore." Hey, is it sore? Let me massage it for you." A blood iron warrior which seemed to have flames spitting out of his eyes rushed forward. Cough. Thigh hurts. I'll massage for you. Cough. Whole arm feels sore too, actually both arms feel sore. I'll massage for you. I'll massage for you. Finally, Ling Jian rolled his neck once in satisfaction before saying, "The young noble took the chance, while the madam and the consort Ling Ran was not around, to give me a few instructions for you guys." All of them tensed up, eyes focused without blinking onto Ling Jian's mouth, as though they were afraid to even miss one word. Ling Jian further coughed once, before saying, "Young noble's original words were..." Then he smiled at them and actually stopped talking. The group's anger shot up towards the sky, all starting to rub their fists as if they wanted to teach him a lesson. Seeing that the situation was taking a turn for the worse, Ling Tian contracted his neck and mimicked Ling Tian's voice to say, actually you all should have passed. But seeing as how you guys watched this young noble get beaten up today, with none of you even attempting to intervene, and even gloating in my misfortune. Thus this young noble has decided that you are not yet ready to pass. Ling Tian winked and smiled. The group let out a long sigh, seeming as though they drained out all the air in them. Ling Tian suddenly continued, "Relax, I've not finished." Suddenly, everyone was on full alert once more. "However, I've thought about it, and decided to give all of you one more chance." "Wahahaha! Long live the young noble!" came a series of joyous chorus. Ling Tian coldly eyed the group of idiots as he thought, "Did you think that the young noble is so nice? How can you expect to reap any benefits without first suffering? That would be ridiculous." Then unhurriedly spoke, "Thus, for tomorrow's test, only those who passed may stay." "Ha ha ha, tomorrow is the last test, easy, this is gonna be easy." The group was ecstatic. Ling Tian coldly announced, "Tomorrow's test consists of each person carrying an azurite stone, to walk 2 rounds from the entrance of the Ling mansion to the Ling family courtyard. The journey is around 160 miles and you have to finish the 2 rounds before lunch to pass. The azurite stones in this area weighed at least 10 kgs each, and were thick and broad." A cry of despair sounded. At the same time, the 36 of them seemed to have collapsed totally. The bitterness on their faces seemed as though it could be squeezed to form juice. One of them saw the look of smugness on Ling Tian's face, and could not help but counter him, saying, "We can't maintain this sort of thing, don't tell me you little Tian can? He, hurry and go plead for leniency from our young noble." Everyone thought the same way, and started to clamor. Ling Tian however sniggered, saying, "Sorry to tell you but I've already tried to plead leniency, and the young noble was kind enough to exempt me for tomorrow's exam." Ha ha ha. The crowd felt like they had just suffered a crushing defeat. Chapter 70, I Will Rule the Heavens. This was the first meeting Ling Tian held after coming to this world. The ones who participated in this meeting were all the people under him, 36 Blood Iron Warriors, Ling Tian, and Ling Chen. The location, the largest room in his own courtyard. The time, deep in the night. With regards to the contents of this meeting, Ling Tian would not allow it to be leaked at all. With regards to how he was able to wield such a power now, Ling Tian felt that it was about sufficient. While it was not impossible for him to expand his power, it would be at the expense of alerting others. If that's the case, then the gains would not make up for the losses. In Ling Tian's eyes, the people in front of him now will become the core members of his own team. In other words, the leaders. Ling Tian felt that it was necessary to understand the background of every single one present and every single information about all these people. While Ling Zhou's beating was almost ineffective towards Ling Tian had still rested on bed for 2 days. This was because his mother, Chu Tinger, had accompanied him by his bedside for a whole 2 days. Only after a few ineffective attempts of sending people to persuade Chu Tinger did Ling Zhou personally come over to fetch Chu Tinger back. For the first time, Ling Tian witnessed just how strong his mother was. She was angered like a lioness protecting her cub, looking as though she wanted to tear Ling Zhou into pieces. After old Madame Ling heard about this matter, she summoned Ling Zhou in front of her and gave him a good scolding. As for Ling Zhou wanting to transfer the Blood Iron Warriors back, he was only able to suggest it before being mercilessly rejected by old Madame Ling. This also created an extremely convenient effect for Ling Tian. Ling Zhou felt that he did no longer had the face to see his brothers and distanced himself from Ling Tian's courtyard. As Ling Tian looked at the 38 of them, his face was stern and grave, with a seriousness which he had never displayed before. Everyone could not help but feel anxious, with their faces were filled with seriousness. Today is the 11th day, 12th month and 3169 year of the heavenly star continent. It is also the 11th day, 12th month and 45th year of the sky-bearing empire. I want all of you to remember this date forever. From now on, everyone present will be a large family, a whole body. From now on, all of you present will be officially my men. Everyone all felt their breaths become heavy. From today on, we will take steps to perfecting our own strength, strengthening our power and increasing our capabilities. However, all of these must be carried out in secret. The enemies we are going to face will be the whole world, including all of the powerhouses. There are still 3 more months before the Ling family courtyard is completed. When it is completed, your road to strength will begin from there. While I am only 5 years old and seem to have a lot of time, this is not the truth. The storm between the different empires is brewing and war will break out at any time. The moment war breaks out, it will definitely spread across the whole continent. Thus, after I accept all of you officially, you must rely on yourselves for everything. If you want to survive to enjoy luxury with me, you must increase your own strength with everything you have. You must make sure that you do not die in battle. Everyone's breaths were heavy as their eyes were like bells with perspiration flowing down their foreheads. After Ling Tian said all of these, they would be idiots if they did not understand what Ling Tian meant. Ling Tian had already explained his ambition to everyone, only short of saying that he wanted to become the emperor. Ever since they came into the Ling mansion, they felt that Ling Tian had been hiding something. It is just that they did not understand, with the Ling family behind him as a powerful backing, why did he have to be so careful? Now, they finally understood that the ambitions which were hiding in the heart of this child was actually so shocking. Hiding so patiently with ambitions so huge. Then, a trace of haughtiness appeared on Ling Tian's face as he growled, "I am called Ling Tian, and I will rule the heavens. Gentlemen, who will be willing to accompany me to rule the heavens?" All 38 of them knelt down in unison. "We are willing to support the young noble to rule the heavens." Ling Tian then smiled and waved his hands. "This is only a small wish of mine, all of you do not need to be so serious. It is enough that you keep it in your hearts. If this matter were to spread out and others think that this good-for-nothing silk pants young noble has such aspirations, they will probably laugh their teeth off." Everyone felt the mood loosen up as they began to laugh as well. The incident of Ling Tian harassing his maid had already spread across the whole capital. Knowing how to harass his maid even at the age of 5, Ling Tian had already been firmly awarded with the title of Super Silk Pants already. Ling Tian's reputation in the whole capital was unrivaled, becoming the biggest joke in the sky-bearing city. After the serious matters had been settled, Ling Tian asked a few questions which had been in his heart. "All of you are from the military. Have you ever heard of people who can leap over walls or smash rocks into powder with their bare hands?" This doubt had been in Ling Tian's heart for a very long time already. Ling Tian had always been trying to fish out this information from the various people he met, but no one was able to give him an answer. Most of them would immediately deny such a thing. This made Ling Tian feel that such martial arts did not exist in this world. As for magic, that was completely impossible. This had greatly changed Ling Tian's idea of crossing through worlds. Ever since Ling Tian saw Zhou Fenghan's palm of rage, breaking the table into smithereens, Ling Tian realized that martial arts and inner chi was actually present in this world. It is just that the number of people who had a grasp of such a power was extremely scarce for some reason. Even if they had such a power, they would not reveal it easily either. The mysterious expert behind Zhou Fenghan had also made Ling Tian alert and cautious. That person was obviously one who cultivated both inner and external martial arts and specialized in concealment and tracing. Ling Tian felt that it was extremely strange that while these people obviously existed, no one knew about them. Furthermore, just how many of these people actually existed in this world? How were the martial arts in this world categorized? Just how powerful will the real experts be? Where would these people be hiding? Countless of doubts filled Ling Tian's heart. Now, Ling Tian had already grasped a vague idea of what was going on. The existence of these people were definitely a secret. There will definitely be a small crowd of people who understood these matters. The Ling family, who was born from peasant lineage, obviously did not know about this secret and did not have the rights to know about them. The Ling family was originally just a wealthy family. After Ling Zan had conquered the lands with the late emperor, the Ling family grew to such glory from nothing. While the Ling family may seem glorious, the foundations of the Ling family were extremely weak. The large aristocratic families which had decades or even centuries of foundation would not place the Ling family in their sights. No matter how much authority the Ling family commanded, it was still lacking a legacy which was being passed down in those deep-rooted large families. Just like the Feis, wealthy in the third generation. As for the Ling family, they only had 3 generations, including Ling Tian. Everyone stared at each other with puzzled looks on their faces. It was obvious that apart from seeing Ling Tian's display of might, they had never seen it before. Ling Tian then sighed to himself, "It seems that I will have to slowly uncover this matter myself." Ling Tian deeply believed that as long as these people existed, there would definitely be traces left behind. Following the increase in his strength, Ling Tian believed that he would definitely appear in their sights eventually. Furthermore, Ling Tian felt that for those aristocratic families which had almost 1,000 years of lineage, they would have definitely came into contact to these people. In fact, the people in their families may be these existences. At the very least, there will be a few of such people in the aristocratic families. Especially the largest family in the Heavenly Star continent, which had a heritage of 1,000 years, the Yu family. Even in his death, Ling Tian would not believe that they did not have such characters within their ranks. If not for some special reasons, how was it possible for a family to have a lineage of 1,000 years? The hardships of 1,000 years, the political changes in 1,000 years, how was that something which could be handled by an ordinary family? Chapter 71, Martial Arts Lesson. After dispelling the frustrating thoughts with difficulty, Ling Tian looked at the group, and asked them another question: when does the recruitment of troops for our country start? The crowd was stunned for a moment, before Feng Mo replied, "Recruitment? What recruitment?" It was now Ling Tian's turn to stare in shock. "There's no recruitment for new soldiers?" Everyone shook their heads as Feng Mo replied again, "The world is so peaceful at the moment, what use have we to recruit soldiers?" Wah! Ling Tian was stunned speechless. "Just because it is peaceful, there's no need for recruitment?" The group replied as though it was only natural. "The usual recruitment takes place once every 5 years, and there was a recruitment held just last year. Since we are not warring currently and the military is not facing a shortage of manpower, there is no need for recruitment. Unless we are in an imminent state of war, or there are too many old and sick soldiers, will the recruitment begin once again to replenish the old with new." Feng Mo also added, "In my 10-odd years in the army, I've only seen recruitment being held twice." No war means no recruitment? Recruiting soldiers once every 5 years? Ling Tian face-palmed at this and had totally no words to describe it. No wonder the dynasties changed so frequently, and no wonder why this continent had 7 empires living on it. The reason was because of this. Managing their military as such, if the empire did not die, then that would be weird. There is no misfortune in being readily prepared. What are those kings and officials doing every day? Did they think they could live happily ever after once they had set up a kingdom? Having no worries at all? Not a single awareness of hardship? Ling Tian felt as though his thoughts were unable to keep up with the times. Ling Tian's original thought was to borrow the country's recruitment, keeping a few batches of new recruits secretly with their family's influence. Then, he would give them his own training, turn them into his private army. However, this plan had now completely fallen through. 5 years per recruitment. How could Ling Tian afford to wait? It went without saying that his plans had to be changed. Looking at Feng Mo and company, he said, "The Ling family courtyard will be done in about 3 months. Based on my own plans and estimates, we can at least have 10,000 men inside practicing at the same time. Since the Empire does not recruit soldiers, I'll leave this part for you guys to perform. My requirements are those who are above 15 years of age but below 25, take as many as you can. This will be your first mission. Feng Mo, you're in charge of handling this, whatever methods you would like to use, I'll leave it up to you. However, when you have gotten those people, you need to bring them inside the Ling family courtyard without any news spreading out." Ling Tian thought a while longer before he continued, "One recruitment might be too large and attract too much attention, so you can break it into a few batches. As for how many batches to split them up to, that's for you to decide too." Feng Mo stood upright and cupped his fists, saying, "Yes. I will comply with young noble's order." Ling Tian considered the scenario once again before letting out a sigh. "Feng Mo, I'll need you to pick another couple of guys to take over the Violet Wind Gang. In 3 years, I want all the underground powers in the capital to be under our control. The rest of the brothers, you may assist at any time. Any matters can be decided at your own volition, there's no need to go through me. Oh, by the way, do not touch the Blood Rose Hall, it's reserved for Ling Jian." Ling Jian shot up in gratitude, "Many thanks, young noble." Nodding his head, Ling Tian stood up before saying, "I've been staying too long in the house, let's go out for some exercise." Everyone's faces lit up in delight, knowing that Ling Tian was about to start lecturing on martial arts. All of them rushed out like a swarm of bees. The piled-up snow was a pure white, with the moonlight resembling water flowing. Ling Tian stood leisurely in the courtyard, holding on to a blade, saying, "All of your so-called martial arts actually has no style to speak of. It was only created after countless processes of grinding on the battlefield. However, it will never be enough for all of you to roam unhindered, and to protect your lives if you rely merely on it. Watch and learn." Drawing out the blade, Ling Tian stood with it slanted towards the sky. His very person seemed to exude a fearsome aura, making it such that it was difficult to even breathe for those people surrounding him. Slowly tilting the blade down, he immediately followed up with the entire set of blade works. In that instant, the snow unrestrainedly blew up, and blade energy flew up into the sky. Although they were only facing a single person with a single blade, in the hearts of the 36 Blood Iron warriors, they seemed to have been teleported back to the battlefield, witnessing the momentum and killing intent of 1,000 cavalry and 10,000 foot soldiers as they fought for supremacy. One blade moved, and the souls of all present were reaped. Very quickly, Ling Tian finished and kept the blade while straightening himself. Staring at the enraptured expressions of all present, he laughed. "This set of blade works is named Slaughter of 1,000 Soldiers. Other than using it for close quarters combat, it is most suitable for a confrontation between two camps, where one is surrounded by a multitude of enemies. In time to come, I'll impart to all of you here this set of blade works. For its complementary internal arts, I'll also pass them down to you." The faces of those present simultaneously emerged expressions of ecstasy. All of them hurriedly bowed in gratitude. For such a ferocious and powerful blade work, if successfully passed down to them, the overall strength of everyone here would definitely be greatly improved. Furthermore, from what their young noble had said, there was also a set of internal arts which could complement it. Everyone present knew that any form of internal arts was a secret among secrets. To think that they had a chance to learn it and become one of those supremely strong individuals in the fables. All of their hearts could not help but race as their bloods boiled in excitement. After dismissing the crowd, Ling Tian looked at both Ling Jian and Ling Chen, who were staring with wide eyes at him, and burst into laughter. "Why are you looking at me like that? No need to worry, I definitely have something good for the both of you. Follow me." After Ling Tian had finished passing the mnemonics of the Divine Shocking Dragon formula and Divine Eyes formula to Ling Jian and Ling Chen respectively, he then used his internal strength to guide them both on how to cycle the energy within their bodies. By the time he was done, it was already bright outside. Looking at each other, the three of them could not help but laugh. Even though they did not sleep for one night, the trio was unexpectedly brimming with energy, without the least bit of fatigue. Leisurely stretching his waist, Ling Tian slowly walked out of his door and squinted his eyes, staring at the rising sun in the far east. His face loosened into a carefree smile. The rising sun seemed to be accommodating Ling Tian's tiny body, bathing him in the countless rays of golden sunlight. Behind him, both Ling Jian and Ling Chen looked at Ling Tian as he immersed himself in the sunlight, with admiration and worship in their eyes. Chapter 72, Grave Situation. In a flash, 10 years had passed. In this 10 years, each of the empires within a continent repeatedly engaged in warfare. Though most of them were small skirmishes, those who were smart could tell that the monarchs of each country were beginning to be a little unwelcoming of each other. After this round of probing each other's defenses, the confusion of war would likely descend upon the entire continent. At this point, self-preservation was not enough of an excuse for a country to use in order to keep the peace. A man does not have the intention to harm a tiger, but the tiger has the intention to kill the man. Even it is for self-preservation, everyone had to enter into this war for hegemony. The Sky-bearing Empire was involved in various wars unceasingly for the past few years. Since it was located in the middle of several countries, the country became an ideal target for the opposing countries to set troops to probe them. Furthermore, they were definitely considered a fat piece of meat. Luckily, the Sky-bearing Empire had an unbeatable commander, General Ling Zhou. Moreover, the other countries were reluctant to engage in an all-out war to prevent the case where the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind. Were they to be invaded when they were off invading someone, then it was as good as handing all their hard work over to the others. As such, though the Sky-bearing Empire faced much shocks, it did not leave any irreparable damage. The citizens believed that so long General Ling was alive, there was no worry about any invasions. Thus, even though the country's situation was a little tense, the people still put on a show of happiness and prosperity. Western Line Military Camp. The General's Tent. Ling Zhou furrowed his brows, looking at the deployment map, his eyes betraying his worries. Behind him stood a neat row of officers, gazing steadily at their general, awaiting Ling Zhou's next battle plan. Ling Zhou let out a sigh internally as he pointed to the topographic map. Look at this place. The two mountains are pressed close together like horns, leaving a narrow gorge in the middle close to 5 or 6 miles in length. The narrowest part here isn't even 100 feet. However, this is a place we must pass if we want to advance or retreat. If the Western Han's army were to lay down an ambush here, they can hide alongside the 2 walls of the valley to wait for our army to pass. When we appear they can use rocks or fire to attack us and our losses will definitely be disastrous. Even if we manage to pull through, we would definitely not have the military power to clash head-on with the enemy forces. However, this narrow gorge is a path which we do not have a choice but to take if we want to advance our troops. All the officers stood behind Ling Zhou, staring closely at the map. Most of them already knew about this trap. The reason as to why the Western Han and Sky-bearing did not engage in wars for the past 10-odd years was the fact that this gorge existed between them. From past to present, an uncountable number of troops lay within this gorge. Soldiers had termed this place as the Valley of Sobbing Spirits and the 2 flanking mountains as the Morning Soul Mountain. It was to the extent where the Sky-bearing Empire retreated the moment they approached this place, with no intentions of conquering any further ground. One of the deputy general raised his head to look at Ling Zhou, and hesitatingly spoke, "General, in the past, we have always stopped our wars at this point. So why must we take over this Valley of Sobbing Spirits this time? We can also rely on the natural barriers, and will not likely to suffer any losses." The rest in the tent echoed his sentiments. "Yeah, that's right." However, Ling Zhou instead hollered out angrily, "Imbeciles! Times are not different and the continent is about to break out into chaos. If our sky-bearing empire can conquer this valley of sobbing spirits in one go, this would guarantee our safety towards the west. If war and strife were to ensue, the initiative to attack or defend would lie with us with this gorge in our hands. How would this be the same as the past?" Pausing for a while, he continued, "Any news from the scouts?" A young officer stepped out and saluted, before saying, "Reporting, there has been no news so far." As he spoke, worry clouded his face. Ever since the war started, they had employed over 10 rounds of scouts to scout this place out, but not a single one returned. From this, they could tell how tightly the enemy was guarding their secrets. The worry on Ling Zhou's face grew more obvious. The Western Han's commander-in-chief, Han Shizi, is extremely proficient in the military arts. Having defended the Valley of Sobbing Spirits for a few years, he should have long ago turned the place into an impregnable fort with all of his experience. How hateful! However, our army must take down the Valley of Sobbing Spirits, else when chaos strikes, we will be besieged on both sides and most likely annihilated. Furrowing his brows again, he asked, "How long has the latest batch of scouts been gone for?" That young officer replied, "Roughly 5 days or so." Heaving another long sigh, Ling Zhou spoke, "They're most likely not around anymore." After a short pause, "Send another batch." The other officers remained silent. They all knew that their general had the ambition to take down the valley by all means possible. Otherwise, their empathetic general would have long given the order to retreat from the valley. From the importance that their general stressed towards the Valley of Sobbing Spirits, the crowd began to sense something amiss. Could it be that chaos was going to strike the continent soon? Seeing the looks on all of his officers' faces, Ling Zhou knew that all of them were not aware of the scenario. Thus, he commanded for some people to bring down the current topographic map, replacing it with another. When all of them took a look, it was actually a map depicting the area of governance for every country in general. Ling Zhou gestured with a finger. The latest intelligence report shows that Northern Wei has amassed a troop strength of around 150,000. They will soon be deployed towards the north of our sky-bearing empire. In at most 3 months, they will reach their objective. Adding on to the garrison troops of 80,000, they would have a military strength of 230,000. Without speaking, I believe all of you can tell what their motives are. Everyone present took in a breath of cold air at this news. Ling Zhou's finger now shifted towards the east, where he continued, "To our east, the Moon Deity Empire is still at war with the Great Zhou Empire and both are at a stalemate. However, whichever side claims the final victory, our sky-bearing empire would have to bear the brunt. To our south, though both Wu Empire and South Zhang seem to be biding their time, they're all amassing soldiers on the sly, making them future threats. Being in the central region of this continent, sky-bearing empire will be besieged on all sides once it gets messy, however stable we might seem now." Ling Zhou spun around, facing the crowd, before saying in a steely voice, "Therefore, no matter the price, we have to take down the Valley of Sobbing Spirits in the shortest possible time, stabilizing the West. When the time comes, we would have 100,000 men defending the West, sparing 60,000 men to tackle the other 3 fronts of war to prevent any loss of territory." The audience stared agape. Even in their dreams they did not expect that the situation had already deteriorated to such an extent. A 40-odd-year-old officer spoke up with a mask of confusion. "In the recent years, our sky-bearing empire had maintained harmonious relations with our neighboring countries. With Wu, Southern Zhang, and Northern Wei, they even have political marriages with us. So why would they?" Ling Zhou threw him a look, but remained silent. Innately, he was cursing, "You senile fool. Old bastard." No wonder you're still an officer even after 30 years in the army. Just a simple political marriage, how could it compare to the allure of global domination? At this time, which monarch would be so stupid as to bother about such things? Currently, all sights were fixed on the battle between the Sky-bearing Empire and Western Han on the possession of Valley of Sobbing Spirits. If the Sky-bearing were to triumph, the continent would see another few years of peace. If the Sky-bearing Empire were to lose this war, the fires of war would immediately blaze to the point of no return. No sovereign country would allow the Western Han to break the balance of power and monopolize the Sky-bearing Empire. Thus, everyone would send in their troops to get their share of profits. This war, while only a confrontation of less than 200,000 people between two countries, was the linchpin. Ever since they came to the Western Line for the past half a year, both armies had received their fair share of victories and losses. However, the Western Han general, Han Shizi, was also a veteran and could see through Ling Zhou's intentions. Thus, he only focused on guarding the Valley of Sobbing Spirits, not advancing prematurely. This left Ling Zhou without any alternatives. If the battle were to continue dragging on, it would spell disaster for the Sky-bearing Empire. Chapter 73, Strange Battle. Translator, David. Editor, Sal. Report. A loud voice, filled with shock, sounded from afar. General, the scouts are back. A division commander took a look before saying. Ling Zhou turned around quickly as he said with gleaming eyes, "Summon him quickly." The 6 scouts entered, with dust all over their bodies, and took a knee, reporting to General, "It's good news." Ling Zhou replied calmly, "What's the good news?" One of the scouts replied, "When the 6 of us went out this time, we did not meet with any enemies until we reached the peak of the Morning Soul Mountain. The 2,000 enemy troops on the north of the Morning Soul Mountain died a mysterious death. The mountain was also burned, not leaving anything behind." Another scout then said excitedly, "The same thing also happened on the southern side of the Morning Soul Mountain. Not a single enemy troop was left of the mountain. There was also traces of the mountain being burned." Ling Zhou's eyes widened in shock as he asked, "Is this real?" The 6 scouts knelt down together. "Your subordinate is willing to make a military pledge." A scout then shouted, "When this subordinate arrived at the peak of the mountain, the military camp is in a mess for some reason." Ling Zhou then stood up and ordered, "Command the 3 armies, we are setting off. Wang Fengzi here. You will command an army of 10,000 men to attack the Western Han to delay the Western Han army. You will set off immediately. Your subordinate receives his order. Li Mingying, Zhang Mengqi. The both of you will lead 5,000 men each to occupy the northern and southern faces of the Morning Soul Mountain. Your subordinate receives his order. As for the rest of you, you will follow this general to do battle with Han Shizi." Roger. Ling Zhou led the troops in the front as he was puzzled by this strange incident. The troops on the 2 faces of the mountain had already sent out their signal to indicate that their forces had already occupied the mountain peak. Ling Zhou had purposefully slowed down the speed of their main troops in order to guard against a possible scheme by the enemy. However, he never expected that both his vanguard forces did not face any resistance at all and easily occupied the mountain peak. The moment their forces occupy the mountain peak, any form of schemes would be rendered useless. Don't tell me there are other troops helping us in secret? Why don't I know about this matter then? All the generals knew that Ling Zhou had a godlike mastery of his troops and thought that he had secretly sent forces to take care of the Soul Morning Mountain. Thus, they all came forward to give their congratulations to Ling Zhou. Being unable to reject them, he could only humbly respond to them. The army then sped up and went through the gorge in a short while. As their objective was nearing them, they were all extremely surprised. There was only Wang Fengzi with his 10,000 troops stationed there. There wasn't even a single trace of the Western Han troops. The only thing they saw was the Western Han tents and flags all over the floor and the occasional glimmer of something shiny on the floor, obviously the weapons which were left behind. It was obvious that the Western Han troops had retreated a long time ago, and in a hurry as well. There were still 2 tents with green smoke rising from them, filled with the enemy rations. Ling Zhou began to frown. He could obviously tell that there was definitely someone helping him in secret. But, he was puzzled about just where this person who helped him was. Why would he not reveal himself after giving him such a huge assistance? Wang Fengzi then came over the Ling Zhou and said with bewilderment, "General, when our forces arrived, the Western Han's army had already retreated tens of miles away. Not a single one of them could be seen. This is strange." As he said that, he rubbed his head in frustration. He originally wanted to accomplish a feat here so that he will be able to return to the capital with his head held up high. However, he never expected the enemy to escape before he even drew his sword. Ling Tian thought through the matter carefully but was totally clueless. Then, he thought back to the battles he had fought in the last few years. Almost all of the time, he would achieve an inexplicable victory at the most crucial moment. There were even a few times when the enemy's general died an unknown death when they were locked in stalemate. As he linked all of these factors together, Ling Zhou could be sure that there was definitely a mysterious force helping him in secret. After receiving such a great favor from the other party, he could not even see who the other party was. Ling Zhou took a long sigh. But, this mysterious man does not seem to have any enmity with me. It seems like he is here to help me. But why do I know nothing about him at all? This matter is just too strange. Ever since the ancient times, there had never been such a situation such as this. In these past few years, Ling Zhou would definitely win every battle he fought, becoming a character that every army would fear. No matter what, this soul mourning mountain and valley of sobbing spirits is finally in the hands of the sky-bearing army. From now on, this place will definitely become a place where for the souls of the Western Han army to mourn. Ling Zhou then waved his hands depressingly and said, "Transit into defense and occupy the soul mourning mountain. We must definitely make the soul mourning mountain be a barrier that no one can pass. We will return to the capital half a month later." As he said that, he did not wait for a reply and returned on his horse. As the other generals looked at Ling Zhou's back view with bewilderment, why is it such that the general looks so depressed? Didn't we just win a great battle? Capital, Ling Mansion. Ling Tian was half lying down on a bamboo chair with his eyes closed. Behind him, a beautiful lady in a white dress stretched out her jade-like hands and gently massaged Ling Tian's shoulders. Her expression was extremely sweet with a sense of satisfaction in her beautiful eyes. It was as though the happiest thing on earth would be for her to stay by Ling Tian's side and massage him. With a barely inaudible swish, a black-dressed man entered by flipping over the walls. Ling Tian's eyes were still closed and his expression did not change. However, the white-dressed lady behind him turned cold as the smile on her face disappeared. Replacing it was a chilly glare as her sharp gaze swept past the black-dressed figure. The black-dressed man then shuddered for a moment and took a few steps forward. When he was in front of Ling Tian, he took a knee and said, "This subordinate pays his respect to young noble." Ling Tian then replied with a soft ho to acknowledge the greeting. The black-dressed man then stood up and cupped his fists politely towards the white-dressed female. "How do you do, Ms. Chen?" The chill on her face was not reduced a single bit and did not even look up. She only continued to massage Ling Tian's shoulder as her chilly gaze unknowingly vanished. The black-dressed man, Ling Jiu, felt his body relax as though he was being spared. Then, he quickly took out a letter from his bosom and handed it over with both his hands. The white-dressed lady then waved her hands gently as the letter unknowingly fell into her hands. As though he was used to it, the black-dressed man was not startled as he said, "Feng Mo and Sun Tai led 1,000 men to the Soul Mourning Mountain. Ling Qi had successfully assassinated Han Shizi and retreated safely. Now, General Ling had already taken full control of the Soul Morning Mountain. Ling Tian then replied with a soft "oh," as though it was all within his expectations. Then, he asked calmly, "Oh, it was Ling Qi who went. What is the casualty count of the brothers like?" Ling Jiayu said solemnly, 53 deaths, 41 serious injuries and 130 light injuries. Brother Sun Tai's right shoulder was also injured. Ling Tian's body shook. The losses are so big? Even Sun Tai was injured? Who were the troops taken from? Ling Jiayu trembled as he said, "From the 3,000 men Yu Zhao had, we took out 500 to attack the southern mountain. We also took 500 men from Li Han to attack the northern mountain." He had been silently praying that the young noble would not ask about this matter. Now that the young noble asked about it, he knew that the two of them would be in trouble. Ling Tian then sat up straight and glared at Ling Jiayu. "Tell me everything at once, what is there to hide? You still need me to ask you bit by bit?" Ling Jiayu's pale face began to break out in sweat but did not dare to wipe it. He stood up even straighter as he reported, "Of the 500 troops from Yu Zhao, there were 43 deaths, 10 heavy injuries and 90 light injuries. Of the 500 troops from Li Han, there were 10 deaths, 31 heavy injuries and 40 light injuries." Ling Tian frowned and said with frustration, "What is Yu Zhao doing? So many more deaths than heavy injuries. Tell Feng Mo that the training for Yu Zhao troops must be increased. Yu Zhao will receive 20 military rods. All of the captains under him will also receive 20 military rods. As for Li Han, let Feng Mo reward him accordingly." Ling Jiayu finally had the chance to wipe his sweat as he thought to himself, exterminating 2,000 soldiers with 500 troops with only 30+ deaths. If this were to be placed anywhere, it would be a glorious record for sure. Only when it is in front of the young noble will they have to accept punishment instead. But that Li Han is really quite perverse. If the both of them are being compared, it is no surprise for the young noble to be angry. Ling Tian then lay back down and shut his eyes. Then, Ling Chen waved her hands to Ling Jiayu and said, "You may leave. Report if there are any changes." As though he was spared from torture, Ling Jiayu took a bow and drifted over the wall as though he was a leaf in the wind, disappearing in a blink of an eye. As he came and went, no one in the Ling family managed to discover his presence.